Danava pranams. Namaste. All glories to Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai. Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 21. Kalim agatam aghyaya kshetresmin vaishnave vayam asina dirga satrena katayam sakshana hare. Knowing well that the age of Kali has already begun, we are assembled here in this holy place to hear at great length the transcendental message of Godhead, and in this way perform sacrifice. Purport from Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This age of Kali is not at all suitable for self-realization, as was Satya Yuga, the Golden Age, or Treta or Dwapara Yugas, the Silver and Copper Ages. For self-realization, the people in Satya Yuga, living a lifetime of 100,000 years, were able to perform prolonged meditation, and in Treta Yuga, when the duration of life was 10,000 years, self-realization was attained by performance of great sacrifice. And in the Dwapara Yuga, when the duration of life was 1,000 years, self-realization was attained by worship of the Lord. But in the Kali Yuga, the maximum duration of life being 100 years only, and that combined with various difficulties, the recommended process for self-realization is that of hearing and chanting the holy name, fame, and pastimes of the Lord. The sages of Naimisharanya began this process in a place meant specifically for the devotees of the Lord. They prepared themselves to hear the pastimes of the Lord over a period of 1,000 years. By the example of these sages, one should learn that regular hearing and recitation of the Bhagavatam is the only way for self-realization. Other attempts are simply a waste of time, for they do not give any tangible results. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preached this system of Bhagavat Dharma, and he recommended that all those who were born in India should take the responsibility of broadcasting the messages of Lord Sri Krishna, primarily the message of Sri Bhagavad Gita, and when one is established in the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, he can take up the study of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam for further enlightenment and self-realization. Text 22. Tvam na sandarshito dhatra dushtaram nistitirishtsatam kalim sattva haram pumsam karnadhara ivarnavam. We think that we have met your goodness by the will of providence, just so that we may accept you as captain of the ship, for those who desire to cross the difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all the good qualities of a human being. Purport. The age of Kali is very dangerous for the human being. Human life is simply meant for self-realization, but due to this dangerous age, men have completely forgotten the aim of life. In this age, the lifespan will gradually decrease. People will gradually lose their memory, finer sentiments, strength, and better qualities. A list of the anomalies for this age is given in the 12th canto of this work, and so this age is very difficult for those who want to utilize this life for self-realization. The people are so busy with these sense gratification that they completely forget about self-realization. Out of madness, they frankly say that there is no need for self-realization, because they do not realize that this brief life is but a moment on our great journey towards self-realization. The whole system of education is geared to sense gratification, and if a learned man thinks it over, he sees that the children of this age are being intentionally sent to the slaughterhouses of so-called education. Learned men, therefore, must be cautious of this age, and if they all want to cross over the dangerous ocean of Kali, they must follow the footsteps of the sages of Namasaranya and accept Sri Sutta Goswami or his bona fide representative as the captain of the ship. The ship is the message of Lord Sri Krishna in the shape of Bhagavad Gita or the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. 23. Bruhi Yogeshvare Krishne Brahmanye Dharma Varmani Svam Kastam Adhunupete Dharma Kam Sharanam Gata. Since Sri Krishna, the Absolute Truth, the Master of all mystic powers, has departed for his own abode, please tell us to whom the religious principles have now gone for shelter. Purport. Essentially, religion is the prescribed codes enunciated by the personality of Godhead himself. Whenever there is gross misuse or neglect of the principles of religion, the Supreme Lord appears himself to restore religious principles. This is stated in Bhagavad Gita. Here the sages of Namasaranya are inquiring about these principles. The reply to this question is given later. The Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is a transcendental sound representation of the personality of Godhead, and thus it is the full representation of transcendental knowledge and religious principles. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, first chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled Questions by the Sages. Chapter 2. Divinity and Divine Service. Vyasa uvacha iti samprasna samhristo vipranam rama harshani pratipuja vachastesham pravaktum upachakrame. Ugrashrava, Sutta Goswami, the son of Rama Harshana, being fully satisfied by the perfect questions of the Brahmanas, thanked them and thus attempted to reply. The sages of Naimisharanya asked Sutta Goswami 6 questions, so he is answering them one by one. Text 2. Sutta uvacha Yam pravrajantam anupetam apeta krityam dvaipayano viraha katara ujuhava putreti tanmayataya taravo binnidus tam sarvabhuta hridayam muninam anatosmini. Srila Sutta Goswami said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto that great sage Shukadeva Goswami, who can enter the hearts of all. When he went away to take up the renounced order of life, sannyasi, leaving home without undergoing reformation, by the sacred thread or the ceremonies observed by the higher castes, his father, Vyasadeva, fearing separation from him, cried out, 'O my son!' Indeed, only the trees which are absorbed in the same feelings of separation echoed in response to the bereaved father." Purport. The institution of Varna and Ashram prescribes many regulative duties to be observed by its followers. Such duties enjoin that a candidate will study the Vedas. They must approach a bona fide spiritual master and request acceptance as his disciple. The sacred thread is the sign of those who are competent to study the Vedas from the Acharya, or the bona fide spiritual master. Sri Shukadeva Goswami did not undergo such purificatory ceremonies because he was a liberated soul from his very birth. Generally, a man is born as an ordinary being, and by the purificatory processes, he is born for the second time. When he sees a new light and seeks direction for spiritual progress, he approaches a spiritual master for instruction in the Vedas. The spiritual master accepts only the sincere inquirer as his disciple and gives him the sacred thread. In this way, a man becomes twice born, or dvija. After qualifying as dvija, one may study the Vedas, and after becoming well versed in the Vedas, one becomes vipra. A Vipra or a qualified Brahmana thus realizes the Absolute and makes further progress in the spiritual life until he reaches the Vaishnava stage. The Vaishnava stage is the postgraduate study of a Brahman. A progressive Brahmana must necessarily become a Vaishnava, for a Vaishnava is a self-realized, learned Brahmana. Srila Shukadev Goswami was a Vaishnava from the beginning. Therefore, there is no need for him to undergo all the processes of the Varnashrama institution. Ultimately, the aim of Varnashram Dharma is to turn a crude man into a pure devotee of the Lord, or a Vaishnava. Anyone, therefore, who becomes a Vaishnava, accepted by the first-class Vaishnava, or Uttama Adhikari Vaishnava, is already considered a Brahmana, regardless of his birth or past deeds. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted this principle and recognized Srila Haridas Thakur as the Acharya of the holy name, although Thakur Haridas appeared in the Mohammedan family. In conclusion, Srila Shukadev Goswami was born a Vaishnava, and therefore Brahmanism was included in him. He did not have to undergo any ceremonies. Any low-born person, be he a Kirata, Huna, Andhra, Pulinda, Pulkasha, Abhira, Sumba, Yavana, Kasha, or even lower, can be delivered to the highest transcendental position by the mercy of Vaishnavas. Srila Shukadev Goswami was the spiritual master of Sri Sutta Goswami, who therefore offers his respectful obeisances unto Srila Shukadev Goswami before he begins his answers to the questions of the sages at Naimisharanya. Text 3. Yasvanubhavam akila shruti saram ekam adhyatmadipam atiti shrutam tamo nindam samsarinam karunayaha Purāna guyam tam vyasa sunum upayam gurumuniham. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, Shukadev Goswami, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyasadeva, who out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggled to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, spoke this most confidential supplement to the cream of Vedic knowledge, after having personally assimilated it by experience. Purport. In this prayer, Srila Sutta Goswami practically summarizes the complete introduction of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the natural supplementary commentary of the Vedanta Sutras. The Vedanta Sutras, or the Brahma Sutras, were compiled by Vyasadeva with a view to present just the cream of the Vedic knowledge. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the natural commentary on this cream. Srila Shukadev Goswami was a thoroughly realized master on the Vedanta Sutra, and consequently, he also personally realized the commentary, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And just to show his boundless mercy upon bewildered materialistic men who want to cross completely over nescience, he recited for them the first time this confidential knowledge. There is no point in arguing that a materialistic man can be happy. No materialistic creature, be he a great Brahma, the great Brahma, or an insignificant ant, can be happy. Everyone tries to make a permanent plan for happiness, but everyone is baffled by the laws of material nature. Therefore, the materialistic world is called the darkest region of God's creation. Yet the unhappy materialists can get out of it simply by desiring to get out. Unfortunately, they are so foolish that they do not want to escape. Therefore, they are compared to the camel who relishes thorny twigs because he likes the taste of twigs mixed with blood. He does not realize that it is his own blood and that his tongue is being cut by the thorns. Similarly to the materialists, his own blood is as sweet as honey. And although he is always harassed by his own material creations, he does not wish to escape. Such materialists are called karmis. Out of hundreds of thousands of karmis, only a few may feel tired of the material engagement and desire to get out of the labyrinth. Such intelligent persons are called jnanis. The Vedanta Sutra is directed to such jnanis. But Srila Vyasadeva, being the incarnation of the Supreme Lord, could foresee the misuse of the Vedanta Sutra by unscrupulous men, and therefore he personally supplemented the Vedanta Sutra with the Bhagavat Purāna. It is clearly said that this Bhagavatam is the original commentary on the Brahma Sutras. Srila Vyasadeva also instructed Bhagavatam to his own son, Srila Shukadeva Goswami, who was already at the liberated stage of transcendence. Srila Sukadeva Goswami realized it personally and then explained it. By the mercy of Srila Shukadeva, the Bhagavad Vedanta Sutra is available for all those sincere souls who want to get out of material existence. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is one unrivaled commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Sripad Shankaracharya intentionally did not touch it because he knew that the natural commentary would be difficult for him to surpass. He wrote his Sariraka Bhasya, and his so-called followers deprecated the Bhagavatam as some new presentation. One should not be misled by such propaganda directed against Bhagavatam by the Mayavad school. From this introductory shloka, the beginning student should know that Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the only transcendental literature meant for those who are Paramahamsas and completely freed from the material disease called malice. The Mayavadis are envious of the personality of Godhead despite Sripad Shankaracharya's admission that Narayana, the personality of Godhead, is above the material creation. The envious Mayavadi cannot have access to the Bhagavatam, but those who are really anxious to get out of this material existence may take shelter of this Bhagavatam, because it is uttered by the liberated Srila Shukadeva Goswami. It is the transcendental torchlight by which one can see perfectly the transcendental absolute truth, realized as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Thus ends our reading for today. On Monday, we'll continue on Chapter 2, Text 4. All glories to Om Vishnupad, Srila Bhakti Nirmala Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad, Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to our Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees Ki Jai. All glories to Sripad Bhakti Niskam Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Sripad Bhakti Vigyan Muni Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the worldwide devotees. All glories to Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Nitai Gora Hari Hari Bol.